With the death of Kobe Bryant, there's been a whole lot of white supremacists and just unthinking people in general. Those are very few. The white supremacists are the vast majority, who have decided that Kobe Bryant's death would be used as a smokescreen and a cover for them to go ahead and say all the grimy, racist stuff that they've been wanting to say. And as far as they're concerned, they think they can get away with it. This is the typical pattern that plays itself out. For the last 24 hours, we have been treated, if it can be called that, to an orgy of anti-Black racism trying to cloak itself as, oh, we're just telling the truth about Kobe Bryant. The man's body ain't even cold yet, to say nothing of in the ground, and his daughter's corpse as well. They haven't even been buried. Oh, but it's never too early to trash a Black person, especially if it's with something that has been demonstrably disproven in court. Oh, there is no lie that's too far-fetched. There is no smear that is too underhanded or too vague or too unsubstantiated to not throw it in a Black man's direction. There is never, ever any underhanded move that's just too dirty, too venal and corrupt to not be employed against a Black man. It's always the right time to attack a Black man, especially right after he's died, because that's the best time to get him. Because you know how a lot of these clowns, most of them, wouldn't dare talk this claptrap when Kobe Bryant was alive. Just like with Michael Jackson. See, when they're alive, they can sue for slander and libel. They can sue you for defamation of character. When they're dead, oh, well, now they're fair game. And as Black folks, we got to stop letting it be open season on Black people every time one of us is dies or is otherwise in the white media's crosshairs. Now, for those of you who may not know, today I decided to voice some of my thoughts regarding the white supremacist backlash, outlash, whatever you want to call it. And one of the things that I pointed out was that there have been some white supremacists online who have been using his Kobe Bryant's death as an opportunity to smear him. One of them was Felicia Sonmez. Not sure if she's part of that Black-Brown alliance I keep hearing so much about, but one can wonder. And she thought she was going to get some clickbait off of trashing Kobe Bryant. Oh, she got some attention, all right. And she also got suspended as well. But somebody else who also decided to tear their behind was MSNBC's Allison Morris. She decided that she would have a slip of the tongue. And she thought she could get away with saying niggers because, well, who the world knows who she is anyway? Just because nobody cares who you are doesn't mean they can't become acquainted with who you are real quick. And now there's a petition going around saying she needs to be fired. Forget about fired. For something of this nature, she needs to be sued. Kobe Bryant was somebody's son. He was somebody's husband. He was somebody's father. And you decide that now is the time for you to think you're going to get your digs in. As Black folks, we got to stop giving passes for all these white supremacists who keep doing this mess. And at least today, it seems some of those passes are not being given out so easily. Heck, you even had 50 Cent who had to call out that Allison Morris creep, and he also called out Oprah going, where the hell's Oprah at? Well, where Oprah's at is hoping that she can get another check from the good white folks over at Discovery Communications. That's what Oprah Winfrey's doing these days. Maybe she's hoping that Apple Plus will give her another phony baloney make work project. That's what Oprah Winfrey's hoping for. She's hoping that Apple will pay her mortgage. So you ain't going to be getting a whole lot in the way of opposition from Mammy Oprah. But apparently there seems to be some sort of informal competition going on among these white supremacists to see which one of them can get in the most grimy, underhanded attack on Kobe Bryant and his dead daughter's memory. In comes the so-called Hollywood actress. You've probably seen her on Westworld for the few people who watch that show. Evan Rachel Wood. Talk about truth in advertising. Have you ever seen this woman act? Me neither. But her name says it all, because her acting, such as it is wooden as hell. You can tell her parents are looking at her and going, she damn sure ain't going to be impressing anybody. If she's waiting to get an Academy Award, she better keep on waiting. But the piece of cedar, or is it maple oak, calling itself Evan Rachel Wood, she decided to go on Twitter and she posted, "What happened is tragic. I am heartbroken for Kobe's family. He was a sports hero. He was also a rapist. And all of these truths can exist simultaneously." Never mind the fact that that is straight out slander. That's libel. That's defamation of character. Kobe Bryant was exonerated in a court of law. And it was demonstrably proven that the woman who was accusing him was false as hell. This woman had God knows how many different men's semen in her freaking drawers. Man, we're talking about prime skank on the hoof. But Evan Rachel Wood, as far as she was concerned, I need to go ahead and say that Kobe Bryant's a rapist. Never mind the fact that that's a complete and thorough lie. Never mind the fact that Kobe Bryant's family is mourning right now, along with the millions of people who loved him. Never mind the fact that his children are trying to come to, his surviving daughters, I should say, are trying to come to terms with the fact that they've lost their father. But Evan Rachel Hunk of Wood decided that now is the time for her to try to score some points with the Me Too movement. That's what Evan Rachel Maida Wood did yesterday. And she's been catching blowback on it, and rightly so. But of course, it wouldn't be a party without Professor Black Truth going ahead and weighing in on the proceedings. So one of the things that I did, and I got to give tip of the hat to Carmel Real 77. You see her in my Twitter feed constantly. One of the things that she pointed out was Rachel Evan Wood was palling around with Woody Allen. You know, Woody Allen, who decided that he would marry his adopted daughter. And he has allegedly molested one of his other adopted daughters. You know, that guy. Oh, by the way, he was damn near 50 when he started dating. At least when he admits to starting dating that Asian chick that his Asian stepdaughter that he adopted. See, he wasn't looking at this as being an adoption. He was looking at it as an early start on the singles bar. That's what he was looking at it as. So Evan Rachel Wood, who apparently has a very convenient memory, she seems to have forgotten the fact that she was palling around with Woody Allen, because after all, she's going to call herself deciding that she's going to slander and smear Kobe Bryant with lies about sexual predation. I'm going to go ahead and drop these receipts about some real sexual predation that Evan Rachel Wood didn't seem to have a problem with. Rachel Evan Wood has been in at least one Woody Allen movie. And come on, people have known about Woody Allen's perversion for decades. Ain't a damn thing new about it. It's like Paul Mooney said. Everybody knows that freaking Woody Allen's a freak and a half. So apparently Evan Rachel Wood, she's got her little bullcrap talking point that nobody believes. Oh, she didn't know about it until Dylan Farrow wrote her letter saying all the stuff that Woody Allen had done to her. Until she wrote that letter, why, Evan Rachel Wood had no idea. Man, people have known about freaking Woody Allen for decades. Just like with Harvey Weinstein. You ain't going to be able to get away with that. And then some other people have found receipts showing Evan Rachel Hunk of Wood talking about how she was shaking and crying when she heard about David Bowie's death, and that no other musician meant more to her than him, and how she was devastated. Yeah, she conveniently forgot about the fact that David Bowie seemed to have a thing for 15-year-old girls. I ain't talking about he just liked to be in their company. As far as he was concerned, well, he needed a few of them. Yeah, the younger, the better. These are the kind of individuals that Evan Rachel Hunk of Wood likes to pal around with and who she has so much affection for. Individuals who are proven, known pedophiles and molesters. Individuals who are known perverts, admitted perverts. Meanwhile, you got Kobe Bryant, who proved that he was innocent, never did any of the garbage that he was being accused of. And well, Evan Rachel Wood, see, that's the thing. They understand what the unwritten rules of Hollywood are. They understand that Black people, especially Black men, are supposed to be the scapegoats for all of the white male executive sins in Hollywood. They know what the rules are. Whenever there's a white guy who's getting dragged, you better bring up a Black man's name. You're expected to do that. That's one of the unwritten rules of Hollywood. It's part of the job description. You're supposed to bring up the name of a Black man. You're supposed to give cover to these guys. Because the thing is, and this is something that I was explaining to Mira Sorvino. We'll get to her in a moment, because if you've been following my Twitter feed, you know that basically Mira Sorvino, she's had this back and forth going with me all day. I don't know why, but I got a hunch. But they understand that their job is that whenever it looks like some white executive's getting himself in some trouble, you better bring up a Black man's name. You better not let a situation pass where you had a chance to be able to say, look at these Negroes over here, and you let it pass. You're expected to do that because you're expected to give cover to these guys because, as I was explaining to Mira Sorvino, see, the thing is, it's easy for Mira Sorvino to go to the Women's March and to call herself calling out Bill Cosby because Bill Cosby's in prison. Bill Cosby's an easy target because the system was not going to protect him. It was targeting him. It was completely stage managed from the sidelines. He was already in the crosshairs, and 90% of putting a black man in prison is merely accusing him. And on top of that, Bill Cosby, just like R. Kelly, just like his brother, and just like Les Moonves, former chairman of CBS, just like Don Hewitt, just like Roger Ailes, and I'll be here till 3 in the morning naming them all. See, you depend on these guys for a job. So that's the reason why they're not very keen. The Mira Sorvinos, whenever they do their Women's March rallies, they're not very keen to call out these white guys who are the CEOs and the producers and the executives. They're not very keen to call them out. Because you see, even if you do get enough guts to call out Harvey Weinstein, well, you know that Harvey Weinstein's plugged in with everybody else in town. You know that there's also Les Moonves and Roger Ailes and a whole bunch of others whose names have not yet been called out, but probably will be very soon. You know that there's an entire network of these pedophiles and rapists running around. And these are the gatekeepers of media. They're the ones you depend on for a job. They're the ones who have the ability to hold a woman's job over her head and tell her, get on all fours. Or better yet, they ain't even got to say it. It's understood. All this guy's got to do is just pick up a phone and make a phone call, and you'll never work again. And ain't that one of the things that one of Les Moonves' victims said about him? All this guy had to do, he's a freaking network executive. Even if you had other producers and executives out there who might have wanted to work with you, they don't want to run afoul of somebody who's a real head honcho, of a media mogul. They don't want to run afoul of this guy because it's an entire economic media ecosystem. And somebody like him can disrupt your operation pretty easily. So it's a matter of, if one of them puts you on the list, well, hell, all of these executives, especially the white male ones, they're all doing the same mess. And that's what Evan Rachel Wood knows. Part of her job description, give cover to them. So, of course, she doesn't like to talk about that, but of course, we're bringing the receipts. And one of the things that I brought up was, while we're talking about individuals who are palling around with Woody Allen, we couldn't leave out Mira Sorvino because she was so keen to bring up Bill Cosby's name at the Women's March, and R. Kelly's name too. Bringing up Bill Cosby's name is completely and thoroughly out of place. He's in prison now. What the hell do you want? Bill Cosby is done and dusted, but the way Mira Sorvino acts, you would think he was still out on the streets. But Mira Sorvino, she apparently had a problem with what it was that I was saying. I guess she took exception to some of it. Now, keep in mind, these tweets, I hope I've gotten them mostly in order. But it started off with her saying, I did not try to avoid, she means avoid talking about Harvey Weinstein. Look at all my tweets, not just one. Do you think a rape victim always wants to see her rapist name in a message to her? I led with Weinstein and Epstein at the march. I included Cosby and R. Kelly because their victims matter. We are all united versus predators. To which I responded, I think Matt Lauer's victims matter too, as do the victims of Les Moonves and Woody Allen. Not one of them is being charged or even questioned by the cops, and we all know they won't be. And no Hollywood actresses will call them out as sex predators at any women's marches. I kept coming back to that point over and over again because I wanted to see if Miss Sorvino was going to reply to that. I knew that she probably wouldn't, but I just wanted to see, would she answer to that? Because it's easy to go in on Weinstein and Epstein because they're more or less sanctioned, but would she actually address the fact that she used the Women's March not as a platform to spell out the most obvious targets, but to go after the most obvious diversions? She didn't respond to it. In fact, every time I mentioned the Women's March, she wouldn't respond to that part. But even though she ignored the part about the Women's March the first time I mentioned it, she still decided that she wanted to give a rebuttal anyway, to which she said, "You are wrong, sir. Do your homework." To which I replied, Miss Sorvino, no one said you didn't mention Harvey Weinstein. I said you tried not to. Then I told her, count the dozens of tweets you posted last week about his trial. sexism, sexual predation, etc., how many actually mention Weinstein's name? Oh, and did you mention Woody Allen, Les Moonves, or Matt Lauer at the Women's March? And look at what her response was. She doesn't deny it. She doesn't mention anything about the Women's March, by the way. I've asked her about that a number of times. How about that Women's March? How come you didn't mention any of these white sexual predators of the Women's March? She wouldn't even touch that. She wouldn't even respond to it. The closest she would get was she said, I did not try to. She means did not try to avoid saying Weinstein's name. She says, I chose in one specific tweet of love and support for my dear friend Annabella Sciorra to make it about her. Harvey Weinstein violently raped her. Over 105 of us have come forward so far. Please do more research on all my activism, all my interviews and statements. To which, being the professor, I had to reply, I have, Miss Sorvino. I paid attention to what you said, and more importantly, to what you didn't say. Allison Mack ran a female slave ring. Was she mentioned at the Women's March or at all? Or Rob Lowe? The system never punishes these guys, and celeb activists don't talk about them. Now, Miss Sorvino would go ahead and give a lot of more tweets. Just because she didn't reply to this one, please don't think that was the end of it. She had a hell of a lot more to say, but the thing is, you could tell when you were getting close to the frame here. You could tell. Because when I mentioned the Women's March, she would not acknowledge that at all. And when I started saying Allison Mack and Rob Lowe, she didn't respond to that. She understands, yeah, this is about ducking and dodging. See, there are individuals who she might say something about, and there are others that she ain't. Yeah, because there are certain individuals who are already in the public eye, whose names are already been associated with this, so there's nothing to hide. But we don't want to bring up Rob Lowe's past, do we? And as for Allison Mack, well, she's a white woman. This is all about message discipline, and the message is the big bad black man. And if you're going to mention a white man, you got to make sure there's a black man mentioned too. This builds a false association in the public's mind, because what they think is, okay, sure, we're saying the same black man's name over and over again, but what it means is, well, these black guys they're doing it just as much as these guys over here are. The system does not protect any black man, even when he's innocent. Now, the black media wants to confront it. We want to challenge it. We want women to be safe. We understand that the reason you have the Matt Lauers and the Woody Allens running around is because people like Mira Sorvino don't go on a crusade against the Les Moonveses and the Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes is dead. So bringing up his name requires no moral courage. But for some reason, nobody's going on a crusade against him. And the reason why is, well, it kind of casts aspersions on whoever the brass is over at Fox News. And by extension, because you know that all these network executives come from the same neighborhoods, went to the same schools, same universities, they're part of the same clubs, they engage in the same behavior, they go to the same stag parties together. To call out one of them or to ask any substantive questions about the behavior of the men who run the media is to cast aspersions on them all. They're all doing the same dirt. They are all neck deep in the exact same sewer. So they got to protect each other. They got to run interference for each other. They have to circle the wagons for each other. They have to keep the conversation off of one another. And this becomes a lot easier when you got a whole bunch of women, especially white women, running around talking about how they're victims of sexual assault. That's what Evan Racist Wood was doing. Apparently she testified in front of some sort of legislative body saying that she was a victim of sexual assault. They all say that. But then what do they say as far as the names of who's the face of sexual predation? Bill Cosby, R. Kelly. Yeah, it's not going to be men who look like Les Moonves and Matt Lauer. It's going to be men who look as different from them as possible. These guys may work for different companies, but they're all in the same business. Now, in the course of these numerous exchanges, and as you can see, the exchanges with Miss Mira Sorvino added up to the point where I started to question, is this really her? Is this like some media manager that she's got? But we'll go ahead and give the benefit of the doubt and say that this was actually Mira Sorvino. One of my followers questioned her and said, how about Bill O'Reilly? How many millions did Fox News pay out? To which Miss Sorvino responded, I denounce him too. Can you remember any time that she denounced Bill O'Reilly? Seriously, she damn sure didn't do it at the Women's March. But she said, I denounce him too. Yeah, now she does. No predators are immune. To which I responded, that's the problem, Miss Sorvino. Certain predators are immune. Roger Ailes, Don Hewitt, Les Moonves, Matt Lauer, Louis C.K., Kevin Spacey, Stephen Collins, Woody Allen, Bill O'Reilly, Donald Trump. The system protects these predators, and celeb activists don't crusade against them. Now, apparently, Miss Sorvino, continuing this particular thread, she got a little bit miffed at that, so she responded, "What are you talking about? They literally just made a movie exposing Roger Ailes. You have not actually researched what I and my fellow silence breakers have been doing. I have rung the bell so loudly about Donald Trump since before he was president through today. I deplore all predators." She puts it in all caps. And to that, I responded, "Miss Sorvino, they made a documentary about Roman Polanski too, and he's still free as a bird in Europe. I want to know who is in prison, because that's the difference between Cosby, R. Kelly, and the people I mentioned. Documentaries are not punishment. Please tell me who's in prison." Now we're getting to it. We're getting to the entire point that she has painted herself into a corner. This is not about who gets accused. This is about who actually gets punished. And now that she's had the question asked, she actually decided to try to do an end run around it. She goes, "Well, Epstein died in prison. I didn't even mention Epstein. I pray Weinstein goes to prison. I pray all these rapists and child molesters go to prison, including the president. But I do understand and decried at the march our broken judicial system, the injustices suffered by people of color." I like that. I like that. People of color. We ain't gonna say black. "How those in power often skate." Well, people of color ain't what this is about. Because you see, she didn't call out people of color. Oh, there's a whole bunch of Asians and Latinos who could have been mentioned by Miss Sorvino, but she didn't. She mentioned the black ones. And that's what I've been focusing on. She knows that. This ain't about people of color. And just to shut that mess down, what I told her was, "Miss Sorvino, it's easy and useless to bemoan the inequity of the system, so let's not." See, the thing is that she's trying to make this into a conversation about, oh, let's talk about the poor Negroes in prison, something I didn't even talk about. We're talking about making sure that everybody who actually has committed some crime gets punished. This isn't about the poor downtrodden Negro. This is about all of these white predators who she doesn't seem to have that big a head of steam about. She doesn't have all that fire when it comes to the Bill O'Reillys. Oh, she's denouncing him now, but she dang sure wasn't doing it at the Women's March a week ago. And I told her, demand that Moonves, Woody Allen, etc. be punished. Stop rehashing diversions like Cosby. If you're not crusading against the big predators, the legacy predators, then don't call anyone out. And that's what it is. If you've decided that what you're going to do is, and I am not so naive as to think that Miss Sorvino, if she's on my Twitter feed, she's probably seen the link to my YouTube channel. I would imagine that she's probably watching this, or at least whoever handled her media account is. That's what I reiterate here. If Mira Sorvino is going to call herself being on a jihad about these sexual predators, then at the very least, what she can do is to tell all of us that she's going to be across the board with all the sexual predators. Stop telling me about Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby's in prison. You don't get to ride on that. Don't just denounce Bill O'Reilly. Demand prison time. Better yet, demand a documentary about the victims of Bill O'Reilly. And then after that, you can have us get a documentary about the victims of Matt Lauer and Les Moonves and Kevin Spacey and Charlie Rose and Louis C.K. and Allison Mack and Stephen Collins. And of course, let's not forget Evan Rachel Wood's would-be muse, David Bowie. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about that. Now, at this point, with this hefty number of tweets that Mira Sorvino had been issuing, I'm pretty much thinking, well, obviously this is the end of it, and I'm going to go ahead and put a button on this by just doing one more tweet. I'm like, surely she's moved on. It's been hours, for God's sake. Surely she has moved on, or whoever her media manager is has moved on, and I can go ahead and put a button on this, and we can put this one to bed. So what I tweeted next was, While I give Mira Sorvino credit for replying, this also shows why Me Too slash Time's Up are not serious about fighting sexual predators. The white men I mentioned control who works and who doesn't work in media. Cosby and R. Kelly don't. Unless you fight them, you're just putting up a front. And here she comes again. She goes, I am serious about fighting them. I put my whole life into a tailspin fighting Harvey Weinstein. I have not relented. I like this. She's playing the martyr. I like this. I am not opposed to all you have mentioned, and many you have not. Sadly, this list is ever growing, but I am actively opposed to them all. Now, I don't know what she or her media manager is trying to prove at this point. But as far as I'm concerned, if this is a matter of you just got somebody with one of those personalities where she just has to have the last word, that's fine. I ain't got to have the last word. When Professor Truth speaks, I've usually said all that needs to be said, though I did go ahead and put in one last note. Fair enough, Miss Sorvino. I'm going to go ahead and concede her little talking point. Not that she's right, but concede that, okay, then, if you want to have that, fine. Then next time you get ready to sound off on the sexual predators, call out the ones who are still on the loose, like Moonves, Lauer, and Woody Allen, people who can hold women's careers over their heads, who are protected by a system they and their pals run. And after that, you can see that there's a couple more tweets. Actually, there's a few more tweets that Mira Sorvino put up here. But one of them that she said, and I'm actually surprised that she did this, she said, to be clear, I am opposed to Donald Trump, Les Moonves, Roger Ailes, Woody Allen, Bill O'Reilly, Allison Mack, Ghislaine Maxwell, Roman Polanski, Matt Lauer, to name just a few. They should all be brought to justice, as should all those in other industries that abuse with impunity. Okay, fine then. That's all well and good. But the problem is, when she had the platform and it was time for her to speak, she didn't say Donald Trump. You would think, as much as Hollywood has been kvetching about the Orange Man, he would be the first one on the list. Instead, she didn't mention him at all last week. Didn't mention Roman Polanski. Didn't say, hey, nobody's above the law and you can't be beyond the arm of the law. And we don't let people run off to foreign countries and try to seek refuge from their crimes there. Didn't say that. Didn't mention Matt Lauer. Didn't mention any of these folk. She's mentioning them on a very obscure, admittedly, a very obscure Twitter feed. Now, more people are going to see this because it's on my YouTube channel, but the thing is, she's mentioning these names now, just like when she denounced Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, but you're not doing it in front of the cameras, and you're not going on a crusade about it. She's not harping on it. She ain't dredging up the past sins of David Bowie and Rob Lowe. She's not dredging up the past sins of Donald Trump whenever she's in front of the camera. She decided it would be Bill Cosby. Right? It ain't going to be Bill O'Reilly. It's going to be Bill Cosby. And it's not going to be Roger Ailes. It's going to be R. Kelly. See, that's the problem. That's the incongruity that I simply cannot and will not overlook. So, yeah, while I do think that Mira Sorvino deserves some measure of consideration because of the fact that I'll be the first one to tell you, any Twitter feed or conversation you have with me, you're in there with a buzzsaw, whether you like it or not. And of course, Evan Rachel Wood, she's got more than enough folk to keep her busy. So look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm surprised that Mira Sorvino would actually engage on this, simply because you got to know, when you look at my Twitter feed or you look at anything I've been a part of, you got to know that I'm going to be coming at you with the questions. She did not say anything about the Women's March. She tap danced around that, just like she last week was tap dancing around the Weinstein, saying his name. She had on the shoes, just dancing. She should have been a ballerina the way she dances around things. And in the end, she goes ahead and gives one, in my humble opinion, basically a throwaway admission here, just one mention in passing, which she will not do again. And that don't impress me. It just gets the point out there. This is the reason why. And by the way, there happens to be more. Mira Sorvino, I guess she just felt that she has to have the last word, or perhaps she's trying to prove something to herself. I don't know if she's trying to prove something to me. I don't know what that would be. But the truth of the matter happens to be, while I do think that there is some credit to be given for the fact that she at least decided to answer some of the things that were said, and I do give credit for that. I'm not going to take that away from her, fine. But the thing is, she did not answer the part about the Women's March, no matter how many times it was brought up. And there is no, it's a non sequitur that just because you denounce somebody on Twitter, that somehow carries the same weight as if you got in front of a nationally televised event, humble though it may be, and decided to do it in front of a crowd in front of the cameras. You cannot equate sending out a Twitter tweet on an obscure Twitter stream to being the same as that. You just can't. So when it counted, Mira Sorvino did not put in that work when it counted. And the thing is, even at best, with the amount of credit that I'm willing to give her, it still amounts to nothing more than lip service. Kobe Bryant's dead. He did not harm anyone, and he proved that. Woody Allen, on the other hand, he's got his own doggone family members accusing him of mess. The dude's running around he adopted a girl and then goes and marries her. In what dimension is that not creepy as hell? He should be the main one. Everybody in Hollywood should be on a jihad against him. Nobody should want to be within a million miles of him. His name should just be like the devil. Just spoken in hushed whispers. Woody Allen. What? That's what should happen whenever you mention his name. It should just horror. People should just, we dare not mention that name. He who shall not be mentioned. That's what it should be. Instead, it's a matter of, have you seen Annie Hall? Oh, what a genius he is. I had some reprobate members of the Woody Allen fan club who decided to bomb into my Twitter feed. I'm sitting here going, these idiots are sitting here saying stuff like, you can't compare Woody Allen to Harvey Weinstein. Why did Harvey Weinstein ever have an offer or some sort of settlement that he could have gotten rid of the charges with but say no to? That's what they were trying to say. They're trying to say that Woody Allen was offered an opportunity to get rid of the charges if he would just admit to it, and he said no. And they tried to somehow compare that to Harvey Weinstein. I'm like, this is somebody who clearly is not very informed about Woody Allen and less than uninformed about Harvey Weinstein. I went ahead and showed him the piece from the New York Times talking about how Harvey Weinstein settled a lot of those claims against him for $25 million. And I told this clown, yeah, you're right. Harvey Weinstein was not offered any sort of settlement because he was the one offering the settlements. But this is the class and caliber of the individuals who are trying to prop up what is nothing more than the culture of rape that goes on in the dominant society. This is how far they're willing to go. How dare the vultures? How dare the vermin who call themselves always giving a pass to the Bill O'Reillys and the Rob Lowe's and the David Bowies? They never seem to be on a jihad with those guys. But when Kobe Bryant dies, first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring up some lies that were said about him. We're going to bring up some lies, because here's the thing. Robert Downey Jr. has had drug abuse and he's been in jail and all the rest of it, but people aren't allowed to mention that. You're not allowed to call Rob Lowe a junkie. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman, you're not allowed to call him a junkie either. And his alcoholism, his drug abuse was well known. Ben Affleck, well, we gotta be understanding of him. After all, he's Batman. Yeah, but he's Batman who likes to hit the bottle. You see, there are things you're not allowed. You're not allowed to paste that onto them. Whenever you're dealing with a white celebrity or just a white person who's noteworthy, period, you're not allowed. They don't allow you to smear them and decide that you're going to define them as being nothing less than just fantastic. But a black person, on the other hand, well, we got to talk about the whole person. Well, that's the problem. You're not talking about the whole person. Well, we have to talk about the good things they did and the bad things that they did. We have to be honest, except that's the problem. You're not talking about the good and bad things they did. You're focusing on only the bad things that were said about them. Kobe Bryant did not do anything to his accuser. She, on the other hand, she was giving it out both pant legs. So this is not a discussion about anything that Kobe Bryant allegedly did. This is all about what someone said about him. And now it's a matter of we're going to smear Kobe Bryant with stuff that was already proven to be lies and false. And why is that? Because this is part of media propaganda. This is part of social engineering. How do you create a false association in people's minds? You take two completely unrelated things and then mention them in close proximity over and over and over and over again. This is what they did to Michael Jackson. You bring up Michael Jackson's name, they make sure to immediately say, oh, there were some pedophile accusations and there were some child molestation accusations. They make sure to say that immediately because they want you to identify the two. Kobe Bryant, the only thing you can say about this man is that he's one of the greatest guys ever to step on the hardwood. One of the best athletes who's ever lived. And yet, here you got creeps like Evan Rachel Maida Wood, this walking mannequin, and she's sitting here saying he was a rapist. Yeah, the heifer wouldn't have said that when he was alive. But now that he's dead, they get their little courage up. See, the same thing that trash like Square Jaw and Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, did to Frances Cress Welsing. And yeah, I know that white woman, what's her name, Allison Morris, we were talking about earlier, you know how Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, he says that he believes her, that when she says that it was a slip of the tongue and she was saying nakers and not niggers. He said that he believes her. Yeah, that's Mark Lamont Hill. You can tell when you got a Negro who's campaigning for a job on cable TV. You know, you can tell when some Negro is desperate to get themselves a gig on MSNBC or CNN. Ain't you gonna have me back on so I can be on one of them panels so y'all can cut me a little check? You can tell. You can tell. I guess ever since Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, decided to say his words about the Palestinians, he was a little bit critical of Israel. Not even critical. It's just a matter of he's sitting here giving a couple of historical facts. And I guess he figured that if he tried to be a little detached about it, that would fly. It would get by them. And it didn't. So now he's trying to find a way to get back into the good graces of the powers that be. And he's going to do it over Kobe Bryant's dead body. How sick you are. Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, this is what he stoops to. He's going to try to score points with the white media over Kobe Bryant and his daughter's dead bodies. So the aftermath of the death of Kobe Bryant has been quite illuminating. I am disgusted by much of what I've seen, but I'm not surprised by it. Anytime a black person dies, the white media immediately begins tripping over their shoelaces to try to find something, anything disparaging or derogatory that they can say about them. That's part of social programming. Where a black person is concerned, you are not allowed to say anything good about them. Let me go ahead and tell you, if there's any sort of dirt under the fingernails of any black person, that's going to be what gets brought up. Told you about how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you had, what's his name? Paul Greengrass, the guy who directed the Jason Bourne movies. He expressed interest in doing a movie about Dr. King, but he said he'd only do it. Well, he didn't say, but he made it clear that he would only do it if he got to bring in the lies about adultery. Those are lies, by the way. Urban legends created by the FBI. In past videos, I detailed that garbage. Bring me some proof that it was actually true. You can't. Nobody can. Oh, well, I heard from somebody said, well, there's a report that this person over here said. That wouldn't even fly in a court of law. Hearsay. Wouldn't even fly in a court of law, so don't try it. But the thing is, Paul Greengrass, he was interested in doing a movie about Dr. King as long as he thought that he could put in that crap about adultery. As soon as the King estate made it clear, nah, you ain't going to be sitting here doing no smear piece against him. Because the thing is, Dr. King copyrighted his speeches, and that being the case, you really can't use what he said without paying the King estate. You have to get their permission. That gives them control. That was brilliant on his part. Only way you do a Dr. King movie is you got to get permission to the estate because you got to be able to try to use his words. Can't use his words without their permission because they're copyrighted. Now, you can say what you want about King's descendants, but Martin Luther King Jr. knew what the hell he was doing. He understood what he was up against. And so Paul Greengrass was like, well, hell, if I can't put in the stuff about adultery, then I don't even want to do the movie. Now imagine that. He doesn't care about the Montgomery bus boycott. He doesn't care about Selma. He did. Paul Greengrass didn't give a damn about the March on Washington, didn't give a damn about meeting President Kennedy or President Johnson, didn't care about Vietnam or the poor man's or the poor people's revolution. He didn't care about any of that. Hell, you would think with LGBT mania sweeping the country that at the very least he would have been interested in Bayard Rustin, the mascot LGBT individual in the movement. You'd think that he would be, that at the very least, Paul Greengrass might have been interested in that, but nope, he wasn't even interested in that. So what does that tell you? You take a look at Dr. King, even if you want to do the most white supremacist, derogatory, twisting, perverting lie about his life, even if you want to make up a ton of garbage about him and try to claim that's his life, you would only get less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of his life that would be devoted to any lies about him and his marriage. The rest of it would be one of the greatest stories never told properly. And Paul Greengrass wasn't interested in that. That should tell you everything you need to know about Hollywood and the men, the white men who run it. I've been telling you for over a decade now, the men who run the media, they don't see themselves as being in the business of entertainment. They see themselves as being in the business of mind control. And they do it through the use of fraudulent images and lying narratives, creating pictures that are a fraud and creating these stories that are a complete and thorough pack of lies. Like the idea that the black man is the face of sexual predation in America. Well, how are you going to establish that? Just keep saying their name over and over again. Well, hell, that Slim Pickens ain't got many to choose from. Well, just keep saying their names over and over. Yeah, but Bill Cosby's already in prison. I mean, how much mileage can we get out of that? Just keep saying it. Yeah, but what about all these other white guys who are out there on the loose and still attacking women? Well, we're not going to mention them. Just make sure if you mention a white guy's name, you have to mention a black one's. Doesn't matter if he's in prison. Doesn't matter if he's under indictment. Doesn't matter if he's a pariah. Doesn't matter if it's true or false. Just say it. Hey, Weinstein's on trial. Kobe Bryant. And I told you guys about that. I said when Weinstein goes on trial, expect to see some black man get dragged through the mud. And here we go. Here we go. So for those of you who've been watching at home, I'm sure you've noticed that it's a very large number of white women who seem to be the main ones who are leading the charge to try to smear Kobe Bryant and his daughter posthumously. It's a large number of white women who are leading the charge. Now, the idea behind that is that's supposed to make it where, oh, nobody's going to refute them. Nobody is going to contradict them. Nobody's going to challenge them on these lies. Well, what they found was exactly the opposite. They've been getting that business and been getting that business all day. And while, believe it or not, I don't have any particular animus toward Mira Sorvino, mainly because I understand where this crap's coming from. I can be disgusted all day, but I can't be surprised. I mean, I know why it's happening. I know who's behind it. I know the strings being pulled. And it's a matter of this is how they get job security. It's a dirty business, but this is how it's done. But that being the case, please do not think that we're going to have a circumstance where people decide that they're going to drag a black man through the mud and then we just sit on our hands and just take it. No, when that mess happens, it's going to be a matter of, well, while we're focusing on sexual predation, mind you, and individuals who apparently lack the moral courage to call out the rapists and the pedophiles whenever they rear their ugly heads, you know, there's a whole lot of folk in Hollywood who have lacked that moral courage. A whole bunch of folks in Hollywood who, in their turn, have lacked the courage of their convictions. You know, there's a whole bunch of folk running around in Hollywood today who are happily making millions of dollars a year. They're giving prestigious awards, which is meant as a form of social legitimacy. Individuals who A-list celebrities cannot wait to work with them. Roman Polanski is a freaking fugitive from the law, but you wouldn't know it by the class and caliber of individuals who are in his movies these days. He's still making movies in Europe, and he seems to have no problem getting his hands on A-list Hollywood talent, just the way he's done in the last 20 years. The awards that he's been given. He had that movie, The Pianist, with Adrian Brody. That was his big breakout movie. That movie got a ton of awards. Then you had The Ghost Rider. That movie had both Pierce Brosnan and Ewan McGregor in it. And this is after Ewan McGregor played Obi-Wan Kenobi. By the way, you notice that not only does Roman Polanski pay no price for his predation, but the individuals who do his movies, they don't pay a price either. Nobody asks Pierce Brosnan, how the world can you go from James Bond to hanging around with pedophiles? How the hell does that work? Ewan McGregor, he's about to have a new Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show. And nobody's saying Obi-Wan Kenobi was palling around with a pedophile. Nobody says that. Adrian Brody, same thing. This has not impacted these actors' fortunes at all, not one bit. Nobody asked them to denounce Roman Polanski. Nobody asked them to condemn him. And nobody says that they should pay a price for being in his movies. Just like Mira Sorvino has not been made to pay a price for being in a movie with Woody Allen. And you've had Rachel Wood, same thing. She idolizes a pedophile, David Bowie, and she likes to be in movies that are made by pedophile rapists. And yet she doesn't pay a price. Her career is just fine. Nobody is looking at her and going, oh, we got to cancel her. Cancel, you got to be canceled. They get to sit there and say, oh, well, I didn't know about Woody Allen until his adopted daughter put out her letter. Come on, you ain't fooling anybody. That would be like saying nobody knew about Harvey Weinstein in Tinseltown until Ronan Farrow's article. Nobody knew. Everyone knows about freaking Woody Allen, just like everybody knows about Harvey Weinstein. What they're hoping for is they're playing the game. Well, as long as he ain't doing it to me. Now, if you want to go ahead and do that, fine. But you don't get to get on a moral high horse afterwards. You just got to stay quiet when it comes time to talk about the pedophiles running around Hollywood. You just got to remain quiet. And you damn sure don't get to drag an innocent man like Kobe Bryant. You damn sure don't get to do that. How dare you? In his family's hour of grief, you pull something like this. Family, we can't allow for people to sit here and just think they can do this mess. There is no low that Evan Racist Wood wouldn't stoop to. And please don't think that this stuff is some sort of coincidence. I told you a couple of years back about how Matt Damon, Mr. wannabe liberal white man in Hollywood, Matt Damon went ahead and showed his true colors when he had that little show with him and Ben Affleck where they were supposed to be cultivating and, mentoring would-be filmmakers. And you had this black woman who said that there need to be black folks who are actually behind the camera making the decisions. And Matt Damon, he shut her down real quick and said the diversity needs to be in front of the camera, not behind it. Never mind the fact that it's diversity behind the camera that decides whether or not there will be diversity in front of it. And you can have all the diversity you want. Woody Allen, this man almost never has black people in his movies. He damn sure doesn't have black people starring in his movies. Oh, you might be a black person with a bit part, but you can count on one hand the number of times he's done that. How many black supporting actors has Woody Allen had in any of his movies? He's just like the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers like to do that mess. They don't like Woody Allen, the Coen brothers, they don't like to have black people in their movies. And that's fine, but it's a matter of when you decide that you are going to occasionally have a black person, you're going to go under the microscope for how you portray them. And what did Woody Allen do? He had a black woman in one of his movies as a prostitute. So some people are very happy with that. Oh, you were in a Woody Allen movie. There ain't a damn thing that is dignified or honorable about that. That is not something to be proud of. One, you're in a movie made by a pedophile. And two, he's got you playing a prostitute. But don't go kidding yourself. When you see these people trashing black folks like this, coming out of the woodwork, doing this grimy crap, you can understand that they're doing it under orders, directly or indirectly. Either because somebody put a bug in their ear and said, hey, this is something you might want to do. Look what happened to Matt Damon. You would think that he would have been scandalized after what he did, but instead what happened was his career went right on clicking. He started getting offered more roles. Why? Because he understands somebody, I think, wanted him to do that. I have a hard time believing that a man who up until that point had never gone on the record pulling something like that, all of a sudden he does that out of nowhere. I'm looking and going, nah. I think that perhaps he thought this would please someone. Just like Hannibal Buress. Hannibal Buress was the one who basically opened the floodgates against Bill Cosby. And for a hot minute there, he seemed to be getting something out of it. Yeah, there are people in Hollywood who understand what the unwritten rules are, and there are also people who understand that who are the individuals they need to please and keep on their good side. And the fastest way to get on the good side of the powers that be in Hollywood, you go ahead and find a black man. The bigger the target, the better. And go ahead and trash him. Go ahead and give a phony baloney apology. This way you can throw a rock and hide your hands. That's what Evan Racist Wood was doing yesterday. Throwing a rock and hiding her hands. Oh, Kobe Bryant, he's a rapist. It's just a fact. All of these can exist simultaneously. No, actually, it can't. Kobe Bryant cannot be a rapist and be innocent of rape at the exact same time. That's a contradiction. But it's not about whether or not you're consistent. This is about we got a black man who we have the opportunity to throw some mud at, and we're going to go ahead and do that because that's the American way. Well, you know what, family? We got to push back hard against this. And this is some of the things I keep telling some of these hard-headed folk who come around these parts. How come you defend R. Kelly? I'm not defending R. Kelly. I could give less than a damn about R. Kelly. How come you defend Bill Cosby? Have you seen me defend Bill Cosby? Have you seen me say that Bill Cosby's an innocent man? Or have you seen me say that Bill Cosby deserves the black community's support? Have you seen me say anything about Bill Cosby that is anything other than look at how he's being used as a proxy? This is not about R. Kelly. It ain't about Bill Cosby. And it's not about Kobe Bryant. These guys are being used as proxies for the black community. That's what this is about. America has always had a nonstop satanic love affair with trying to demonize black sexuality, particularly black male sexuality. Sure, a black woman can be sexual so long as it's a white man that she's in bed with. That's the lesson that Woody Allen was getting across. That's what that portrayal was meant to say. I can tolerate a black person being around so long as it's a black woman and she's only here to suit my sexual needs. And then afterwards, I'm either getting the hell out of that room or she needs to get out of my bed, or either way, we're parting company. If she's in bed with a white man, well, she ain't a slut. She'll be a whore, perhaps, but she's, a whore is considered to be, I guess, classier than a slut in the eyes of white supremacy. And as far as black men in particular, there should be absolutely not even a hint of sexuality from him whatsoever. It doesn't matter if it's the science fiction shows with a black character. If it's a black male, he can always be counted on to be a eunuch. He's always going to be completely and thoroughly desexualized. We got to make it clear that there may be a black man in the future, but he damn sure ain't going to be procreating, that's for sure. To the black buffoon or the black best friend. If he's black, he's always going to be completely and thoroughly neutered, always castrated, always completely and thoroughly desexualized. He does not want a woman and no woman wants him. That's part of social programming. Trying to teach societal roles through false imagery. But long before now, this country's always loved the idea of attempting to demonize black sexuality, black male sexuality. But this demonization fetish has kicked into overdrive with the recent Me Too, Time's Up movement, fraudulent as both of them are. The fact that we've had this awareness now, just this social awakening that, hey, this stuff is going on. Ain't going to do anything about it, but at least we'll talk about it now. We'll talk about it, not going to do anything about it. So now it's a matter of we got to put the genie back in the bottle. And their cork of choice is going to be